A few months ago, Diageo announced they were bringing IW Harper back to the US market after a 20-year hiatus. If you're anything like me and you've had a chance to taste some of the older stuff like this 1942 bottle of Harper, your first thought was clearly, is it going to taste anything like the old stuff that Americans knew and love? Well, let's dive in and find out. Hey everyone, it's Paz from Bourbon Banter, and today we're going to take a look at Diageo's recent release of IW Harper, which they've brought back to the US market after a 20-year hiatus. There's a lot of great history associated with this brand. Many of you have probably seen bottles like this on some of the websites. This is specifically a 1942 bottle of Harper. And I'm not going to go through all that history. You can read about it on a few other sites. I'll put some links in to the site. Chuck Cowdery especially has got some great history. But when I first heard this was coming back to the U.S. market, much like many of you probably, immediately thought, was it going to be anything like the old stuff? Well, or at least as close as anybody can make it to the old stuff. So we're going to dive in today. Check these out. Diageo was kind enough to send me a couple samples. And we'll find out just, how they stack up. They're not going to be like the old stuff. No one is promising that. In fact, Diageo has made it very clear. This is not the same stuff in the old stuff, and it's not the same stuff that's popular in the Asian markets that they've been doing for years, ever since they took it out of the U.S. market. Hopes should not be aligned with that. We can dream, but don't align with that. Let's dive in. Let's see how they stack up. Couple things to note. This is the IW Harper non-age stated. It's estimated to be, the bulk of it, around a 4-year-old or so whiskey. This is a limited edition 15-year IW Harper. Limited edition means it's going to be damn hard to find it. It's out in a lot of markets. It hasn't reached every market yet. Same for this one. This one is going to be about $34.99. And this one is suggested retail of $74.99. I would suspect, though, that there might be some gouging by some liquor stores, and then clearly the secondary market's going to be super hot on that. The bottle for this one looks pretty cool. It's modeled after some of the old Harper decanters with like a cut crystal design. And this one is a bottle that's a reimagined view of some of the older bottles that are out in the market right now. For this one, which is the 15-year, all of the whiskey in this one was distilled at what's called the new Bernheim Distillery, which was owned by United Distillers and sold to Heaven Hill in 1999 after their distilling facility had burned down. This juice was distilled somewhere between 90 and 99 is sort of the guess. And if you do the math backwards from 2015, it either was distilled right at the tail end, or it was distilled, barreled, and then at some point before now pulled out, put in stainless steel to hold it until it was ready for bottling. Ultimately, that doesn't matter, but for those of you who are doing the math, that's a reality there. The non-age stated, interesting line in the Diageo press release. It says that it contains whiskey distilled from the same period at Bernheim as this one, mingled with other fine whiskeys. Since there's no age statement, those whiskeys, could be anywhere from 4 years or older, and that's where I think the estimates are coming for 4 years. Chuck Cowdery has some ideas on where those whiskey may be coming from, but Diageo has been known to be buying bulk whiskey from some of the major players for years now. But this will be available year-round, I think the marketing is using that, the fact that it's got some of this juice in it. But as you'll see when we get into the tasting notes, two completely different animals, and no comparison should be made between those. So the first one up is the non-age stated whiskey. The color in this one I think, properly reflects the fact that it's only 82 proof, that it's relatively young. The nose in this one It's got one of the more pronounced noses that I've had in a while. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but the first thing that hits, I mean, I stick my nose in this, and the first thing I'm hit with is ripe bananas. I mean, it's crazy how much bananas on the nose of this. And when I smell bananas in a bourbon, I immediately think, Woodford Brown Forman. I think Barton Distillery, which is, by Sazerac. Those are some of the places where the yeast, in my opinion, gives a lot of banana notes to some of the whiskey that they produce. And man, this is very full. And then there's some vanilla, and really after you kind of soak it in, it's best described as, it's like smelling a pack of juicy fruit gum. So it's definitely on the fruity side, to say the least. Well, it drinks like 82 proof. It's really light. There's some vanilla in there. Very sweet. Way too sweet for my personal preference, but it's like a sweet candied fruit with a little bit of oak underneath it. Let's try that again. Yeah, it's overly sweet for me, and as drinking it neat, that just doesn't work for me. The finish on this one, though, relatively short. Once the sweetness wears off, you start picking up some of those oak notes. You get some black pepper, and with 18% rye, that's not a surprise. There's also some of that minty aftertaste that you would expect from rye. I tried it with water, adding some water to it, and that took some of the black pepper spice off of it. But at 82 proof and already being very light, you're not doing yourself any favors by adding water to this one. And in my opinion, it's really not a bourbon to be enjoyed neat. So maybe as a mixer. But once again, trying to be objective, this may be very appealing to people who are new to bourbon. It's very soft and approachable, and it's not overpowering. And that may very well be Diageo's strategy with this one, is to bring something into the market. Let's play on the heritage, oh, my grandfather drank that, or my uncles drank that, and bring them into the category of something sweet and approachable, and not offending. The other one, obviously, is it may work really well in a drink that tends to lend itself to sweetness. So if you enjoy Manhattans, for example, and you tend to like to add a little bit extra vermouth or a little sweetness, this may be the perfect bourbon for that. And it's something I'll try. I do like my Manhattans a little sweeter. But I would, personally, I won't be adding this one to my home collection. I think the $34.99 price on this one's a little steep for what you're getting. I think there's much better selections out there. And at the age that it is, you're in the age range of a Jim Beam White. And while I think, quite frankly, I think the Jim Beam White has a little bit more punch to it. So I would probably defer to that one. When it comes to the 15, though, it's a little bit of a different beast. Like I said, they're not alike at all. This one's got a retail price of $74.99 for a 15-year bourbon. If you don't go any further than that, not an unsurprising price. I still miss the days of getting my Elijah Craig 18 for $50. And I know they're going to be bringing that back to the market, but the price is going to make me cry in my whiskey. And I only bunkered 2 bottles of that. So this one is 86% corn. It is 6% rye, so this is a lower rye, more of a traditional bourbon mash, and 8% malted barley. However, the nose on this one is simply divine. I love the nose. I could smell this for hours. It smells like an older bourbon, and not just a 1942 bourbon, but bourbons made in the 80s and the early 90s. And well, there you go. It makes sense, right? Timing is perfect, but it has that telltale sign of what I often call sort of a varnished cedar smell to it. I'm not sure what other people call it, but that's how I categorize it. I just simply love that smell and enjoy it very much. And if I had to nose this blind, amongst other stuff, I would probably put it in the category of sort of those older produced bourbons. So it's got that going for it. But it's also mingled with cinnamon and some chocolate, which is kind of a nice note to have to it. taste, though, is a little unexpected. It's not as rich as the nose would lead you to believe. And at 86 proof, I suspect, once again, that's the challenge. Diageo keeps bringing these things out, but the proofs are low, relatively low to what people are drinking these days. And that could be a factor of wanting to stretch their supply. It could be a factor of higher proofs. It's just not balanced enough. But I'd love to see what this would taste like at a higher proof, assuming that the balance would retain intact. I think that could be an interesting proposition. Maybe, a little closer to the 100 proof bottled and bond flavor profile of the old stuff. But once you get past that, there's baking spice, there's vanilla, there's honey, there's some sweet corn as well on it, which makes sense with the higher corn profile on it. And then of course there's the chocolate notes, but more of kind of a dusty cocoa, as I would describe it after a couple sips. The finish on it, though, I wouldn't call it long. It's kind of a little more than medium in length. The sweetness dies off, and you start emerging through that more of the oak and the spices. It gets a little tannic on it, but not too bad. Stays fairly balanced on the back end, and even almost a little bit of a medicinal mint taste to it, which is surprising since the rye content is so low. But that could be associated with some of the astringency coming out of the tannins. I had a lot of optimism for this one based on when I smelled it, and I've tried it several times. As you can see, I've given it a lot of attention, and the taste just doesn't live up to the smell, and that's really disappointing because I know that I've been very critical of Diageo's Orphan Barrel series releases to date, and I really want to find something that I like to my flavor profile, but I'm also very aware that my tastes are not the same as everyone else's. So always take my reviews as guidance, and always, if you can, get a taste yourself and try it. But for this one, I have to say that at $74.99, if I was just going to smell it all day, I'd buy it, slam dunk. But based on the taste, the lack of richness, the lack of true depth, I think there's other things I'd invest my money in. But I suspect for many people, though, that this will be very enjoyable. It'll be an accessible thing if you can find it. Once again, I think this is going to be off the shelves pretty quickly. People are going to grab it. The secondary market, unfortunately, will probably be pretty hot around this, either as a result of people who have bought it just to flip, or people who have bought it, tried it, and it just didn't live up to expectations, much like mine. But the good news is it's in the right direction. It's limited, so we'll probably never see it again. But for me, I think I'll pass if I see it in the store. I'm extremely fortunate. I don't tend to collect bourbon outside of the things I taste and I drink every day, but I did come into a cache of 42 Harper just accidentally, and I think I'm just going to focus on drinking these. I get all the smells and the aromas that I enjoy, but it also has that depth and that complexity there. So, Diageo, if you're listening, I really encourage you to try to bring one of these to market at a higher proof. I do have a sample of Blade and Bow that they sent me that I'm looking forward to tasting. I've gotten lots of positive comments from other whiskey writers that I respect, and maybe that will finally be the reaching a point that I think, okay, this is good. This is where we need to be for my taste profile. So that being said, I encourage you, as always, if you can get a sample of these, whether via a friend or a glass at your local bar, do so. Try them out, and if you like them, buy them. Once again, my guidance is just my tasting preference. But at the end of the day, I think Diageo continues to struggle a little bit about how to take advantage of the current market via the old stocks they happen to have, while they're continuing to push brands like Bullet and distill new product that'll be available in years to come. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this, learned a little bit, and as always, let me know your feedback. If you love it, let me know. If you hate it, let me know. And until next time, cheers.